A good day. Thank you for being here with us today on Everyone's Got a Story. What's yours? My name is Michael Smickley, and today we have Bill Bowes, and he'll be here talking about his story about as a firefighter. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thanks for the invitation. I'm excited about this and getting to spend a little bit of time with you too.
Most appreciated. So, to everyone here that may be your first time here watching us, what this show is about is we've all gone through life. Life happens. So in essence, what you've gone through may be mundane to you, but to someone else who may be hearing, like Bill's story today, it may be an inspiration and or give you hope. So Bill, can you tell us about your story, as in what you experienced and why it's important to you, please?
Oh, very good. Thank you. So the goal here is to cram a good 45 years into about 15 minutes. Is that what we're after here?
15, 20 minutes, something like that, yeah. You've been inspired by so many people. I know that for a solid fact.
I really stumbled into the fire service. I had graduated from college with a degree in teaching. Cool. And taught middle school math and science.
That's cool.
And discovered that teachers, especially back in the early 1980s, didn't make a whole lot of money.
True.
Got married, bought a house, had a baby. My wife, it was our goal that she stayed home with the kids whenever they came along, and our oldest one came along pretty quickly a year after we were married. So, gosh, we were young and dumb. We had no idea what we were doing. We just know we loved each other and we wanted to raise our kids.
That's awesome.
And
that's awesome.
So Debbie quit working, and we found out, it took about a month and a half to realize that the loss of her salary was going to cause us some pain because my salary wasn't enough to live on. So I told the school I wouldn't be back the next year. I'd find another job. The economy took a downturn right at that time, and nobody was hiring. Oh my gosh. I had picked up painting houses for the summer, as a lot of teachers do.
Cool.
So I had a little bit of income from that, but fall was looming and painting would stop pretty soon, and what would we do? And the funny thing, how God works sometimes, my dad heard on the radio that the Omaha Fire Department was taking applications for firefighter.
Oh, nice.
I had no idea what being a firefighter meant. Had no clue. But it was a job, and I just needed a job. I had a wife, baby, and mortgage.
That's true.
And maybe a car payment back then, too. So I put an application in, went through the testing process in July and August, and they hired a class in September, and I was in that class. It floored me. There were 800 some people that were applying, and I made it into the top 25 somehow.
Awesome.
Certainly wasn't by my doing. It was just God leading me where I didn't know where I was going. And so started on the fire department, had no idea what I was getting into. Didn't know what the job was, and we went through probably 14 to 16 weeks of training back then to teach us the basics, and thought, this is pretty interesting. I kind of like this, and every day that I was on the job, I grew to enjoy it more and more, to the point where I really love this job.
Awesome.
It is an opportunity to serve people.
Yes.
And some of us know at an early age what we want to do. Others, it takes a while, and I'm definitely in that latter group. But I discovered through the job that I have a servant's heart. I want to serve people in one way or another.
Yes.
And I was fortunate, blessed to end up in the fire department where I could serve in that manner. And there are any number of different ways of serving people. I just happened to find one that I really enjoyed. So had a very enjoyable career, met a lot of great people, saw things that I realized I had a very sheltered childhood and growing up based on what I saw on calls with the fire department.
Understood.
Just really opened my eyes to what was out there in the world, both the good and the bad.
Yeah.
The bad is very, very sad, and the good is great.
Yes.
On the pluses and minuses of the job, probably one of the most extreme is to be doing CPR on somebody. So when I teach CPR classes, I like to say if somebody's unconscious, not breathing, their heart's not working, what's a real simple way of describing their condition? They're dead.
Yes.
So you're working on essentially a biologically or clinically dead person, trying to bring them back to life. And there were a number of times in my career where that person that we were working on would come to the fire station and say, "Hey, thanks for saving my life."
Awesome.
It doesn't get much better than that.
Very awesome.
What a great reward.
Yes.
And to be part of a team that was able to do that. And then on the bad side, kids especially, one incident really sticks with me. It was back in 1991. That was a long time ago, ancient history to some. To me, it was just a long time ago. And
Yes.
we got called to a car accident scene where a 3-year-old child died. And that was very difficult. And that really opened up kind of a new chapter of not only my career, but my life, in that I knew the effect it had on me, obviously, because I felt that. But when I saw the firefighters around me feeling the same way, that was right in the early days of realizing the importance of mental health in fire and police as well.
Yes.
And in the fire service, there's a program called Critical Incident Stress Management. And as a result of that scene, I became involved in critical incident stress management, became a peer support person. So I went through some specialized training on, if you and I are firefighters, you've witnessed a terrible scene, what can I do to help you to pull that information out of you? And I don't understand the psychology of it, but just the matter of talking through a situation does a wonderful job of relieving the stress related to it. It's like we're getting that out and not keeping it bottled up.
Yes, very true.
And that was a very rewarding thing, and was able to have many debriefings with several firefighters through the years. And every one of those debriefings took me back to that call in 1991, but it wasn't in a bad way. It was in a healthy, a mental healthy way, if that's a way of saying that.
Actually, it is. So yes.
So the career has been very good. I had the opportunity a few years into my career to become a paramedic, which I tell young kids thinking about getting into the fire service, if you're inclined medically and interested in becoming a paramedic, that will open a lot of doors for you. There's just a lot of need now for paramedics, not only on a fire department, but private companies. Hospitals are hiring a number of paramedics, so it's a great job field now.
That's good.
You have to be called for it. You have to have that inclination to want to do it, because it's not an easy thing, but it is very rewarding, and the information you learn is really valuable.
Very true.
And then one of my motivators for doing that was when I was trained as an EMT, which is the basic level that the fire department has. I would see paramedics that I worked with do things, and I didn't really understand what they were doing. You know, what's going on in the body, in that victim's body, that you're trying to fix, and I wanted to understand more. So the opportunity came up, and I went through paramedic training. Great move. That was a very good career thing to do. It just gave me a lot of good experience and knowledge and education. And then I felt like I was able to help people better because I had a better understanding of their pathophysiology. So I spent about 21 years with the Omaha Fire Department. Wow. And was starting to think, what is life going to be like after I leave the fire department? And I was probably 6 years away when I first started thinking that, 6 years away from that retirement age. And I thought, I wonder if there'd be a fire chief's job in the Omaha area that would open up that I could maybe try to get. Crazy thought, Number one, there at the time there weren't that many fire departments in the Omaha metro area who were career departments, that is, had paid staff. The number of communities had volunteer staff.
True.
And I started looking at what kind of credentials do I need. So I went back to school, I got some more education, some more certifications, and 2 years into my 6-year plan, the chief's job in Papillion opened up. And I thought, it's not the timing at all. It's not my timing. It's not my timing, but I'll throw my name in and go through the process as far as I can get, and I'll learn. I'll learn what the processes are like. What do communities, what do elected officials look for in a fire chief? All good education. And so I started down that road, put my application in, started on the process. By chance, if you believe in chance, I don't. We happen to live in the Papillion Fire District, and I got to know a few of the members of the Papillion Fire Department. They're good people. I thought, yeah, these are good people. That's nice. Maybe this job is more interesting, more appealing than I thought it would be. And as I went through the process, I made the first cut and the second cut and got a mayor's interview, and the next thing I knew, they offered me a job.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh. So now I was looking at, do I stay with Omaha for the last 4 years of my career there, or do I leave that and go to this kind of unknown adventure of being a fire chief in Papillion? And it was a tough decision. I would leave a fair amount of pension in the Omaha system. I'd leave that behind.
Yes.
Actually took a little bit of a pay cut to go to Papillion from my job in Omaha. So it was tough to convince my wife of that, but eventually I got her worn down and she said, okay, go ahead. So became the chief in Papillion. At that time, we had one fire station in downtown Papillion, 6 firefighters working every day, and then we had volunteers that assisted with different calls at different times of days.
That's pretty cool.
And it was a lot of fun, like a small community, really enjoyed it. But then the metro area as a whole, and certainly the Papillion, La Vista, Sarpy County area started to grow and grow and grow.
True.
And within a few years, we had a second fire station.
Nice.
And then about 5 years after that, La Vista, who had a volunteer fire department, recognized that their response times, a lot of what we do is how fast can we get somewhere.
True.
And in a career department, Omaha, Papillion, Bellevue, Bennington now, response times are in the 4 to 6 minute range. Okay. And La Vista had about 11 to 15 minute response range. So if you look at Omaha geography, there's Omaha and Douglas County, then La Vista, and then Papillion, and then Bellevue over on the east. La Vista squeezed between 2 career departments, and their response times were slow because they were volunteer departments.
Gotcha.
People had to leave work to go to the station to get to the truck to answer the call. It was just the nature of it.
That is true.
Great people doing that job,
Yes.
but they weren't in the stations. So eventually, after a lot of talking and planning with officials in both cities, the Papillion Fire Department started serving the La Vista area in fire and emergency medical services. So we grew overnight from 2 stations to 4.
Nice.
So now we have 4 stations that we operate out of, a staff of 60, 68 really total. So we've gone, in the 17 years I've been in Papillion, from a staff of 20 to a staff of 68, and 1 station to 4 stations, and never ever could have anticipated that, expected that. So it's been a great growing experience.
Oh, yes.
Growing up in Omaha, I grew up in the Benson neighborhood.
Okay. Cool.
Great neighborhood. In fact, at one time, we think our block on 65th Avenue between Sprague and Spalding had more kids in a 1-block area than any other neighborhood in Omaha. We had tons of kids. We had one family with 7 kids, another family with 10 kids. We had 4 in my family. So we had a great neighborhood growing up. I loved the Omaha area. And then moving down into the Papillion, Sarpy County area, it was a big change, but at the same time, more great people. I think this part of the country, we have great people here.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Yeah, really enjoy the people here. So I'll get into a little bit of a sad part and kind of tie it in now, if that's okay.
Please and thank you.
So, as I've been chief in Papillion for, I'll go back, say, about 5 years, getting close to 60 years old, wondering when retirement is and what does that look like. My wife Debbie and I had been married at that time 36 years, and
Congratulations.
thank you. And I'm starting to look forward to that 50-year anniversary, because that's, to me, that's a big deal. If 2 people can stay together for 50 years, they're doing something right.
Half a century is pretty good.
Oh my gosh, that's a long time when you put it that way. Looking forward to that. And then in February of 19, Debbie hurt her knee. Nothing major, but what happened was she ended up tearing a piece of cartilage just from wear and tear. Knees are abused joints.
I definitely understand that one quite well.
Yeah. So she she couldn't walk on it. She was on crutches. We have a house. It's technically a tri-level, but actually it's 5 different levels. So everywhere we go in that house, there were steps. So she had to stay on the main floor in the family room for about almost 2 weeks, because she couldn't manage the steps quite yet. Going to physical therapy, things were making progress real well. One Thursday morning, I got her breakfast because she couldn't come up the 3 stairs into the kitchen.
Yeah.
Got her breakfast, left for work, told her I'd be back for lunch. And about 11:20 or so in the morning, I got a text from her, which was kind of unusual. She always felt like she didn't want to bother me at work. And I said, if you need something, just call or text or something. And I thought that's kind of unusual. And she sent another text right away, and what's going on here? And so I called her, and she was having trouble breathing.
Oh, no.
And what dawned on me pretty much right about then was that she had developed a blood clot because of her immobility.
No.
That morning, unbeknownst to us, that blood clot broke loose, and made its way up to her lungs and got stuck.
Oh, no.
So a pulmonary embolism, the technical term for it. When she said, I can't breathe, I said, can't breathe like 911 can't breathe? And she said yes. And for her, I knew it was bad. And the way she was talking, it was bad. So I ran out of my office. My office is about 15 minutes-ish away from the house, and told her I was going to call 911. So as I ran out of the office, I called 911. I got home just after the ambulance and the fire truck did. People always ask, why does a fire truck go with an ambulance? Because we need hands, we need bodies.
Yes.
And in this case, we certainly needed bodies. I got there, and probably about 10 minutes after I got there, we were moving her out of the house, and her heart quit.
Oh.
And the ambulance crew took her from there. I couldn't watch. I couldn't be involved in that. When CPR is done on somebody, it's hard to see, especially if it's a loved one.
Oh,
It's not a friendly, easy thing to do with someone, and I just couldn't watch that. So where we lived at the time, we were closer to Bellevue Medical Center. So the ambulance took her down to Bellevue, and the doctors worked on her way longer than they really needed to, but I'll always be grateful that they did that.
My humble condolences.
No, thank you. And about an hour and 20 minutes later, they called it. In fact, obviously I called the kids. We're all waiting in a waiting room in the ER, and Debbie's down a hall and around a corner. So we don't know what's going on, and every once in a while, a nurse would come and say, we're still working, we're still trying. And my oldest son, who's a paramedic firefighter in Omaha, he and I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
The other kids, not so much. And Matthew and I knew that the longer this went on, the less likely it was to have a good outcome. And at one point, Mindy, my daughter, said the hospital had given us the choice of waiting in the waiting room or going in the room where they were working on Debbie. And I knew I didn't want to go in there. The kids initially didn't. And after quite a while, Mindy said, I want to be with Mom. So I said, okay. So I went and got the nurse. We were getting Mindy towards the room, and something, it wasn't anything I heard or saw, because I didn't make it into the room, but I thought I need to get the boys in here too. So I went back and got the boys, and we all went into the room, and right then is when the doctors had done everything they could. And they just said it was time to call it quits. So then we were able to say our final goodbyes there, and that was a terrible thing to do.
Yes, it is.
But going back to family and relationships and neighborhood and the good people in this area, the love that we received.
Yes.
In the days that followed was just amazing. I often describe the first really 10 days after Debbie died as being in a fog. I remember bits and pieces of some of those days, but there's a lot of those days I just don't remember. is just a blur.
I can definitely understand that quite well.
So it was March 19th of 2020. What else happened in March of 20?
I had a lot of stuff.
A lot of COVID stuff, yeah.
Yes, around the world.
Yeah, yeah. So right then, that day she died, that week she died, was when everything changed.
Yes.
And we were told right away that we couldn't have a funeral. Number one, my wife just died, and now what do we do? And we can't have a funeral, so what does that mean? So as we're processing all this information, the kids got together in a corner of the room and decided that, okay, we won't have a funeral now, but in August, near Mom's birthday, we'll have a memorial service.
There you go.
And we all said, oh, that is great. The anticipation being that all this COVID stuff would be kind of cleared up by then, and
true.
It wasn't necessarily, but it was certainly close enough.
Yes.
So we were able to have a memorial service for her that August.
That's good.
That turned out to be a kind of a blessing in disguise for me, because it gave me time to process her passing away suddenly like that. And in the process, so journaling, I'm guessing you're a journaler to some extent?
Kind of.
A little bit? I can see you kind of doing that. Some people are great at journaling. My daughter is great at writing. I'm not much of a journaler, but I knew from grief classes and grief books that journaling was writing, almost as good as talking.
Yes.
In a way, because you're getting it out.
I'm better with talking than I'm journaling.
Ah, very good.
My dyslexia makes things a little more interesting because I change words, letters, numbers, everything backwards, inside of out.
Okay.
In combination when I talk, write, and so forth. So it makes what I do rather interesting.
I bet it does.
So, yeah, I understand that. So sometimes I journal, but sometimes not so much.
But talking you're good at.
Yes, I can do
good.
that.
Yeah. So I was able to plan her memorial service, and I didn't realize it at the time until after the service, but in the process of planning the service, I wrote it out and planned the songs and all that goes into a memorial service, and that was really healing for me. It wasn't anything I would have done on my own, but just the circumstances dictated it.
Yes.
And it worked out very well. So the Papillion La Vista, really Bellevue community came together for us.
Which is awesome, awesome.
Yeah, it was such a blessing to have all those people there. So going back on my career, Debbie spent 36 of my 38 years in the fire service with me.
That's pretty awesome.
And now I'm looking at retirement and wishing she could be here to enjoy that as well.
And she is in an angelic way.
Yes, yeah.
She's one of your best cheerleaders on the other side, and she wants the very best for you as you move forward, as into your later years.
Yeah,
I look at life more than just years, but so a lot of the kids out here, we play video games. So you get enough experience points, you level up. Mm-hmm. So with the seasons of life that we've occurred over our lifetimes, we've leveled up quite a bit.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. That's a good analogy there.
So I got a question for you. Mm-hmm. And I thank you very much for your time that you've been here with us, firefighting, your wife and your family. It's such a blessing to have all that opportunity. I'm very thankful for you. But is there any words of wisdom for someone out there that may be watching our show today?
Oh, words of wisdom. You would think as you get older, you'd get wiser. That may be true, that may
Some
not.
days.
Philosophically, from just a general life perspective, what I like to tell our young firefighters is treat everybody well and treat everybody the same.
Yes.
And ideally treat everybody as you would want them to treat you.
Exactly.
If you accept everybody for who they are and you treat them well, that's going to serve you well in life, no matter what occupation you may have.
Very true.
Another experience is faith. I went through a grief share class.
Yes.
It was about 6 months after Debbie passed away that I started it.
With Paul Mattson, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, mutual friend.
Yes.
So I met Paul at a Grief Share class, and that was very healing for me. And Grief Share is a faith-based grieving organization.
That's
and a
cool.
grieving program. I can't imagine how I would have gotten through all of that without faith.
That's good. That's very good. Yeah, that faith is definitely a needed aspect of life. No matter what one believes in, faith is a core part of that, as well as love.
Yep. Yeah, and the two really should and do go hand in hand.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else we would like to talk about before we wrap things up here in a few
How
seconds?
much time do we have?
About 30 seconds.
Okay. The second part of the story
Okay.
about I grieved hard for Debbie. I grieved hard. Well, I use the word intentional. I didn't try to run from grief. I grieved intentionally.
That's smart.
About 9 months after Debbie passed away, I was introduced to a woman who then I married about a year later.
Oh, very cool.
So a new chapter in my life
Yes.
started. It's been about a year and a half now.
Awesome.
Wonderful chapter.
Awesome.
And I never anticipated having two women in my heart at the same time.
I understand that quite well.
And yeah, so it's an amazing and wonderful thing. I miss Debbie every day, but I love Julie every day too.
Yes.
So that's kind of the conclusion of my story,
True.
or brings
true.
us up to date.
Yes, yes. Which is it's a good place to have as a happy ending.
Yes.
But yet new beginnings.
Right, good way of putting it, yeah.
So, well, thank you for everybody out there, and thank you, Bill, for being part of us on today's Everyone's Got Your Story. What's yours?